You've got an upgrade ready. Maybe you've been waiting all year. September is right around the corner, and then Apple walks out on stage, and the price starts at $1,399. Here's the thing, that's not the worst case scenario. The worst case is $1,599. And there are people at Apple right now running that exact math. If you're planning to buy an iPhone 18 Pro Max this fall, what I'm about to break down changes your entire decision. Stick around, because the launch strategy Apple just revealed makes this more complicated than just the price. So here's what we're working with: two separate reports, one from the Wall Street Journal, one from analyst Jeff Pugh. Both predict the iPhone 18 Pro starts at $1,399. That's a $300 increase over the current model, and the Pro Max could land anywhere between $1,449 and $1,599, depending on which report you're reading. I've gone through all of it: the component cost breakdowns, Apple's earnings call, a survey of thousands of actual iPhone users on their buying intent. The numbers tell a very clear story, and one part of that story involves a launch schedule change that I don't think most people have processed yet. Let me show you exactly what's happening. This isn't Apple being greedy. Well, it's not only Apple being greedy. Here's the actual problem. The iPhone 18 Pro is getting the A20 Pro chip built on TSMC's 2 nanometer process. It's also expected to ship with LPDDR5X memory and a variable aperture camera system. And those last two components are costing Apple roughly three times what they cost last year. Three times. DRAM prices are up, NAND storage prices are up, and Tim Cook went on the record on an earnings call last Thursday and said the memory market situation is, quote, unsustainable. That's not spin. That's a CEO telling you the price is going up. Now, Apple could eat some of that cost to protect relationships with buyers, but look at what they've done on every other product in the last 12 months. MacBook price went up, iPad price went up, Apple Watch went up. The pattern is pretty clear. And here's what's wild: the A20 Pro on 2 nanometer is genuinely impressive. The variable aperture camera is a real upgrade. This isn't a phone that's coasting on the same internals at a higher sticker. The problem is the people being asked to pay for it don't all agree it's worth it. So someone ran a survey, thousands of iPhone users. One question: why, if the iPhone 18 Pro Max costs significantly more, what do you do? 55% said they'd keep their current phone longer. More than half. Not switch to Android, not downgrade to a standard iPhone, just wait, which honestly makes sense. If you're sitting on an iPhone 15 or 16, there's no emergency here. But here's the number that actually surprised me: only 6% said they'd drop to the standard iPhone 18 instead. 6%. That tells you something important about who buys Pro Max phones. These aren't people who are price shopping within the Apple lineup. They want the Pro Max or they want nothing. And 17% said a high enough price would push them to Android entirely. Now, 17% sounds small, but Apple sells tens of millions of iPhone Pro units every year. 17% of that is not a rounding error. That's a real number that Apple's pricing team has absolutely modeled out. And here's what makes this interesting: 20% said they'd buy it no matter what the price is, which, I mean, respect, that's commitment. But the fact that it's only 20% tells you the ceiling exists, even for Apple, even for the Pro Max. There is a price where people stop. Okay, this is the part I mentioned at the top, and it's genuinely more interesting than the price. Apple is not launching the iPhone 18, not in September. Let me say that again. The iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max are coming this fall. Well, September 9th is the expected date. Pre-orders on the 11th, on sale the 18th. But the regular iPhone 18, spring 2027. Why? Because Apple is also launching its first foldable iPhone this fall, probably called iPhone Ultra. And that's three headline products on one stage, a Pro Max and a brand new form factor that the entire tech world has been waiting years for. Adding the regular iPhone 18 to that lineup would just cannibalize the moment. So Apple is splitting the calendar: Pro and foldable in the fall, regular iPhone, and a second gen iPhone Air in the spring. Here's why this matters for your wallet. If you were planning to wait for the standard iPhone 18 as your cheaper option out of this generation, you're waiting until 2027. And if you were thinking the iPhone Air Gen 2 would be your move, also 2027. What you're getting in September is the Pro lineup and a foldable, both of which are going to be expensive. The cheapest new iPhone Apple releases this fall starts at $1,399. So let's talk about the phone itself, because the price conversation only matters if you understand what's on the other side of it. A 20 Pro chip on 2 nanometer, that's a meaningful generational jump, not just in speed, I mean efficiency. 2 nanometer means better battery life at the same or better performance levels, which, if you have ever watched your Pro Max hit 8% at 4 in the afternoon, you understand why that matters. The variable aperture camera is the real story here, though. For the first time, the iPhone Pro camera system will be able to physically adjust how much light enters the lens, the way a DSLR does. Not computational, not software, actual mechanical aperture control. That's a hardware upgrade that hasn't existed on any iPhone before, and it's exactly the kind of feature that Pro buyers who use their phones as primary cameras have been asking about for years. So is it worth $1,399? That depends entirely on what you're upgrading from. If you're on an iPhone 13 or 14, probably yes. The chip gap alone justifies it. If you're on a 16 Pro Max, harder argument, you'd be paying $300 more for a better camera and a faster chip on a phone that's already fast. And if you're on a 15 Pro Max, honestly, this is the upgrade cycle you've been waiting for. The camera leap is real, the chip is real, the price is also real. Here's where I land. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is going to be the most capable iPhone Apple has ever made. That's not a bold take. That's just what Apple does every year. The question is whether the jump is big enough to justify the first genuinely uncomfortable price increase this lineup has seen. If you're upgrading from an iPhone 13, 14, or 15 series, yes. The combination of 2 nanometer efficiency, variable aperture camera, and whatever software Apple wraps around it makes this the clearest upgrade case in a few years. If you're on a 16 Pro Max and debating whether to go day one, wait for the reviews. Not because the phone will be bad, because you deserve to know if $1,399 is the number, or if $1,499 is where Pro Max actually lands. And if you were counting on the standard iPhone 18 as your budget play this fall, start planning for spring 2027, because that phone isn't coming in September. One thing I'm genuinely curious about: at what price does Apple actually lose you? Not the number you'd complain about, the number where you actually don't buy it. Drop that in the comments, because I have a feeling the answer is going to be more interesting than anyone expects.